The sound wasn't a knock. It was heavier than that. A hollow clang, metal biting metal, followed by the sudden scream of my car alarm, cut short like someone choking off a cry. 12:07 a.m. I stood barefoot at the window, heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. Outside, red brake lights burned at the curb, two glowing eyes, watching, waiting. By the time I flung the door open, cold air slapping my skin, the tow truck was already pulling away. My car swung behind it, helpless, chained like an animal being dragged into the dark. No warning. No note. Just gone. I didn't need to ask who ordered it. Everyone in the neighborhood knew her, but not by name. Linda Crowley, HOA president, self-appointed judge, jury, and executioner of our cul-de-sac. She had written me up before. Mailbox too high. Basketball hoop leaning a few degrees over the sidewalk. Grass she claimed was visually aggressive. But this, towing my car at midnight, that wasn't enforcement. That was punishment. I'd parked where I always parked, right in front of my own house, after a double shift at the hospital. I was a respiratory therapist back then, bone-tired, still smelling faintly of antiseptic, carrying the weight of other people's lives on my shoulders. I barely had the strength to make it inside, let alone fight an HOA rule written decades ago, back when families had one car and no one imagined caring for a disabled parent at home. The rule said no street parking between midnight and 6 a.m. Linda clung to it like scripture. When I called the towing company, my voice shook. They told me where my car was and how much it would cost, after-hours release, cash only, more money than I had in my wallet, more than I could get at midnight. So I sat on the curb. Alone. In the dark. Phone cold in my hands. I cried quietly, not the kind that makes noise, just the kind that steals your breath and fogs the air in front of your face. Morning came anyway. It always does, bright, indifferent. I borrowed my neighbor Mark's truck and drove to work, swallowing my pride with my coffee. When I got home that afternoon, exhausted all over again, there was a notice taped to my door. Another violation. This one for unsightly items. The offense: my mother's walker, left on the porch where I could reach it quickly. That was the moment something inside me changed. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want drama. I wanted fairness. I wanted to be seen. So I did the one thing Linda never expected. I read HOA bylaws until the words blurred, county ordinances, zoning maps, public records. My eyes burned, but I kept going, and slowly, quietly, the truth started to surface. The HOA had authority over common areas, not public streets. The overnight parking rule, nullified years ago by a county update. The tow, illegal. And then I found something else. Something that made my stomach drop and my pulse race. Linda's house. That perfect corner property with the imported stone and manicured hedges. It wasn't supposed to be there. The neighborhood had been built in phases. During a zoning transition, a permit had been rushed through. Most homes were properly grandfathered in. Hers was. It sat directly over an emergency and utility easement. Flagged. Conditionally approved. Never corrected. The paperwork had been buried. I didn't rush. I documented everything. Photos, maps, emails. I filed records requests, formal complaints. Then I sent a polite letter, not to Linda but to the HOA board, asking for a review of towing practices and citing the ordinance that made what she'd done illegal. The response was immediate. Linda showed up at my door that evening. Her lips were pressed thin, her eyes bright with anger that had nowhere to go. She called me disruptive. She said the neighborhood had standards. She warned me I'd regret pushing back. I looked past her, at her perfect lawn, her flawless stonework, and said quietly, "So do I." The county moved the way truth always does. Slow at first, then unstoppable. Inspectors came, surveyors measured, notices went up. Linda fought loudly, publicly, accusations flying, voices raised. But facts don't argue. They just sit there, heavy, unmovable. The night before the final decision, my car appeared back in front of my house. No apology, just a receipt slipped under the door. The fee waived. By morning, yellow tape blocked the street. Cones lined the curb. Heavy equipment idled, engines humming low and ominous. I stood on the porch with my mother, her hand warm in mine. Linda was there, too, shouting into her phone, hair undone, face pale. The county order was final. The structure violated a critical easement. No temporary fixes. No exceptions. The house had to be removed. Not demolished in a flash. Just taken apart piece by piece. Stone cracked, dust filled the air. Walls that had once felt untouchable became small, fragile. I didn't cheer. I didn't smile. Loss is still loss, but consequence is different. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. New HOA leadership, open meetings, clear rules, street parking allowed, the towing policy repealed, and slowly people started using a word they hadn't used before. Grace. Linda moved away. I heard she blamed me. Maybe she always would. One evening, as kids' laughter echoed down the street, Mark leaned on my fence and said, "Most people would have just moved." I shook my head. "Most people are tired," I said. "That doesn't mean they're wrong." I planted a tree where Linda's hedge once stood, right at the edge of the easement. It's still small, still growing. But every time I water it, I remember that night. Standing barefoot in the dark. Watching my car disappear. Power forgets compassion easily. Ordinary people can't afford to forget their worth. Rules matter. So do people. And when the two collide, it shouldn't take a midnight tow to remind us which one comes first.